Keep breathing, please.
In the bustling heart of Penn Station, New York City, during the peak of evening rush hour, Sarah Jenkins dashed through the crowds, her heart pounding like a drum. She had exactly 2 minutes to catch the 5:45 train to Midtown, where her life-changing job interview awaited. The position at Harlan Associates promised stability after years of scraping by, a chance to pull her family out of the endless cycle of debt and despair. But then she spotted him, an elderly man slumped on a metal bench, his face ashen, one hand pressed to his chest, as if warding off an invisible attacker. Commuters streamed past him like a river around a rock, oblivious or indifferent. Sarah hesitated, her eyes flicking to the departure board. 30 seconds left. Miss this train, and she'd lose everything. Yet those pleading eyes locked onto hers, whispering a silent cry for help. What she didn't know was that this stranger held the key to a fortune beyond her wildest dreams, and that her split-second decision would unravel a web of secrets, sparking debates about privilege, prejudice, and the raw unfairness of life. Sarah's day had started long before dawn in her cramped one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn. At 4:30 a.m., her alarm blared through the thin walls, jolting her awake. She slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to disturb her younger brother, Marcus, who was curled up on the sagging pull-out sofa in the living room. The place was a far cry from the spacious homes she'd seen in magazines peeling paint, a leaky faucet that dripped like a metronome, and the constant hum of traffic from the street below. Sarah caught her reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror, deep lines etched around her eyes from sleepless nights, her dark curls pulled back in a practical ponytail. At 28, she looked older, worn down by the weight of responsibility. By 5 a.m., she was out the door, trudging through the pre-dawn chill to O'Malley's Diner on Flatbush Avenue. The air smelled of exhaust and early morning coffee as she pushed through the swinging doors. "Morning, kiddo," grunted Lou, the grizzled cook, flipping pancakes on the griddle. Sarah tied on her apron and grabbed a notepad, plunging into the breakfast rush. For the next 7 hours, she balanced trays, refilled mugs, and forced smiles for tips that barely covered the subway fare home. The customers were a mix: construction workers wolfing down eggs, office drones scrolling phones, and the occasional tourist fumbling with maps. By noon, when her shift ended, Sarah counted her earnings: $28.50. Not even enough for groceries. Rent was due in 4 days, the electric bill was overdue, and Marcus needed supplies for his online classes. The knot in her stomach tightened. How much longer could they live like this? Walking home, Sarah passed the gleaming skyscrapers of Manhattan visible across the bridge, symbols of a world she could only dream of entering. Harlan Enterprises dominated the skyline with its towering headquarters, a monument to innovation and wealth. She'd applied for a front desk role at one of their subsidiaries, Harlan Associates, on a whim 3 weeks ago. The pay? $50,000 a year, plus benefits. It was a lifeline. Back at the apartment, Marcus was at the rickety kitchen table, surrounded by second-hand textbooks he'd scavenged from library sales. "How was the diner?" he asked, not looking up from his notebook. "Busy as ever," Sarah replied, injecting false cheer. "Studying biology again?" Marcus nodded, his face lighting up. He had their late mother's sharp mind and determination. Their parents had been killed in a hit-and-run 5 years earlier, a tragic accident that left Sarah, then just 23, as the sole provider. She'd quit her community college courses in nursing to take any job that paid. Marcus's future became her obsession. He dreamed of becoming a doctor, but without scholarships, it seemed impossible. "I found this grant application," Marcus said, sliding a printout across the table. "Deadline's next week, but I need a laptop that doesn't crash every 5 minutes." Sarah's chest ached. A decent laptop? That was $500 they didn't have. "We'll make it work," she said automatically, though doubt gnawed at her. Her phone buzzed an unknown number. "Hello, Sarah Jenkins? This is Rebecca from Harlan Associates. We'd like to interview you today at 6 p.m. Can you make it?" Sarah's world tilted. "Yes, absolutely." Hanging up, she stared at the phone. This was the break they'd prayed for. Marcus hooped when she told him. "Harlan? That's massive. They're behind half the tech in the city." Sarah nodded, her mind racing. $50,000 meant no more sofa beds, real meals, and Marcus in a proper university. But first, she had to get there. Digging through her purse, she tallied her cash. $28.50 from tips, plus $12 saved from last week. $40.50 total. The subway to Penn Station and then the train to Midtown would cost $15 round trip. She'd skip lunch again to make it stretch. As she grabbed her folder with her resume printed at the library on faded paper, Sarah allowed herself a moment of hope. This interview wasn't just a job. It was redemption for the nights she'd gone hungry so Marcus could eat, the bills she'd juggled like a circus act, the dreams she'd buried under minimum wage drudgery. "Wish me luck," she called to Marcus. "You got this, sis." Knock him dead. Stepping into the bustling streets of Brooklyn, Sarah imagined a future where they weren't one paycheck from eviction, where Marcus could focus on healing others instead of stocking shelves part-time at the corner store. Little did she know, fate had other plans that would expose the brutal inequalities of society and ignite a firestorm of controversy. Penn Station was a madhouse at 5:30 p.m., a sea of suits, backpacks, and hurried footsteps echoing off the cavernous ceilings. Sarah clutched her folder, checking her phone. 5:43. The 5:45 train would get her to the interview with 10 minutes to spare. She'd spent her last $10 on the ticket, leaving $30.50 for emergencies. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since a stale bagel at dawn, but adrenaline kept her going. Gray clouds gathered outside, and as she neared the platform, rain began to patter against the windows. Umbrellas popped open like mushrooms, and people surged forward. That's when she saw him. An elderly man in a tailored overcoat sat motionless on a bench, rain soaking through despite the partial shelter. His white hair was matted, his hands clasped around a leather briefcase monogrammed with GH. His eyes were glassy, unfocused, lips moving in silent confusion. Something was terribly wrong. Sarah slowed, her instincts kicking in from those half-finished nursing classes. The man tried to rise, wobbling, his free hand flying to his chest. Shallow breaths rasped out. "All aboard. Final call for the 5:45 to Midtown." The conductor's voice boomed. 20 seconds. Sarah's mind screamed, "Go. This job is your ticket out." But the man's gaze met hers, pure fear, like a drowning soul. "Help. Please," he whispered, barely audible over the din. Time froze. The train doors hissed open. The interview, the salary, Marcus's education, everything flashed before her. 10 seconds. The man clutched his chest harder, color draining from his face. 5 seconds. Sarah dropped her folder into a puddle and sprinted to him. Sir, can you hear me?" She knelt, rain drenching her thin jacket. Up close, his watch gleamed expensively, but his vulnerability was universal. "My chest. Can't breathe." Sarah yanked out her phone. 911 emergency. Penn Station, platform 12. Elderly man with chest pains, struggling to breathe. "Send help now." As she spoke, she loosened his collar, feeling his erratic pulse. "I'm Sarah. Stay with me, okay? Help's coming." The train pulled away, carrying her dreams with it. Sirens wailed in the distance. "The man, George," he murmured through labored breaths, gripped her hand. "Meeting. Important. Downtown." His eyes darted toward the Manhattan skyline, where Harlan Enterprises Tower pierced the clouds. Sarah shushed him. "Focus on breathing." Her phone rang. Harlan Associates. She declined it, her heart breaking. Could she still make it? If she left now. But George's grip weakened, his face graying. No. She stayed. Paramedics arrived in a flurry of lights and efficiency. "Ma'am, what happened?" the lead EMT, a no-nonsense woman named Carla, asked. Sarah relayed the details as they checked vitals. George refused to release her hand. "Please, don't go," Carla nodded. "You can ride with us if you're not family." In the ambulance, racing through traffic, Sarah watched the city blur. Somewhere in those towers, her interview slot was filling with someone else, someone who hadn't stopped for a stranger. At New York General Hospital, doctors whisked George away. Sarah paced the waiting room, fluorescent lights buzzing like accusations. Missed calls piled up, 3 from Harlan. She should explain, beg for rescheduling. But what? I chose humanity over opportunity. Hours ticked by. Finally, a doctor emerged. He's stable, anxiety-triggered heart issue from new meds and stress. He's asking for you. In the room, George looked revived, color back, eyes sharp. "My savior," he said with a weak smile. "You didn't have to stay." Anyone would, Sarah lied. Dozens had walked by. George pressed. What did you sacrifice? She confessed about the interview. Harlan Associates. It would have changed my life. George's expression shifted. The door opened. A polished man in his 50s entered. Dad, we were terrified when you didn't show for the board meeting. Thomas, George said. This is Sarah. She saved me. Thomas turned, gratitude etched on his face. The driver said you wandered off. That new blood pressure med messed with your head. Board meeting? Sarah's mind reeled. George had been en route to a crucial deal when confusion struck. Harlan, Sarah whispered, piecing it together. Thomas nodded. Dad founded Harlan Enterprises decades ago. Harlan Associates is our subsidiary. The room spun. She'd saved George Harlan, the tech mogul whose empire employed thousands, whose net worth rivaled small countries. A man whose building she'd admired from afar, never dreaming she'd clean its floors someday. I had no idea, she stammered. George smiled. That's what makes it pure. You saw a person, not a portfolio. George insisted on repaying her cab fare, at least. Sarah refused. Kindness isn't for sale. He handed her his card anyway. George Harlan, Chairman Emeritus, Harlan Enterprises. Call if you need anything. As she left, exhausted and defeated, Sarah had no clue the card was a golden ticketer that a bystander had filmed the whole scene, uploading it to social media. The video went viral overnight, sparking heated debates. Was her act naive in a cutthroat world? Did it highlight racial biases in who gets ignored? Or was it a rare beacon in a society rife with injustice? The next morning, Sarah's phone rang. Sarah? Rebecca from Harlan Associates. About yesterday, would like to reschedule for 3 p.m. today. Stunned, Sarah agreed. Had George intervened? At the Harlan Tower, the lobby awed her. Marble expanses, historical plaques. A portrait loomed. George Harlan, founder. Rebecca greeted her. There's a change. Someone wants to meet you personally. In the penthouse office, George and Thomas waited. My angel, George beamed. Explanations flowed. George's episode during a $600 million merger walk. Sarah had saved not just him, but the deal in his briefcase. You chose right over easy, George said. I'm not offering the desk job. I'm offering my executive assistant role $90,000 starting, benefits included. Sarah gasped. And for Marcus? A full scholarship through our foundation, any school, grad included. Worth over $250,000. Tears flowed. Why? George leaned in. I've built fortunes, but lost sight of people. You reminded me. In a world full of greed and inequality, your selflessness cuts through. He shared regrets, ignoring workers' plights, prioritizing profits over ethics, decisions that fueled corporate scandals and public outcry. Sarah's act exposed the chasm between haves and have-nots, igniting internal debates at Harlan about fair wages and diversity. She accepted, shaking hands on a new life. But this was no fairy tale ending yet. Challenges loomed, testing her resolve and sparking company-wide controversies. 8 months later, Sarah's world had transformed. The Brooklyn dump was history. She and Marcus now lived in a sunny Queens 2-bedroom, Marcus thriving at Columbia on his scholarship. Sarah strode into George's office daily, suited and confident. Morning briefing, George. Their bond deepened. Mentored her in mergers, ethics, philanthropy. But Sarah pushed back, introducing the Sarah Jenkins Compassion Program. It awarded 68 scholarships, launched 35 training initiatives, and mandated employee volunteerism. Over 12,000 hours logged. Board meetings turned tense. Some executives argued it diluted profits, calling it woke overgrowth. Others praised it for boosting morale and PR. A leaked memo sparked media frenzy. Was Harlan whitewashing past labor abuses? Protests erupted outside the tower, decrying corporate hypocrisy amid rising urban violence and economic divides. Sarah navigated the storm, testifying in internal hearings. Kindness isn't weakness, it's strategy. Ignoring inequality breeds resentment, even violence. Her words went viral, dividing opinions. Supporters hailed her as a reformer. Critics labeled her an opportunist exploiting George's guilt. George evolved too, ditching his limo for subways, witnessing firsthand the struggle, smuggings, homelessness that plagued the city. You opened my eyes, he told her. Promoted to director of social impact, Sarah's influence grew, but not without backlash. A rival executive leaked her background, sparking debates. Did her race and poverty make her a token, or a genuine voice against systemic injustice? 3 years on, the circle closed at Penn Station. Rushing to a keynote on urban equity, Sarah spotted an elderly black man on that fateful bench, sobbing over a crumpled invitation. "My son. Graduation. Lost." It was for Columbia's medical school. Tyler's name rang a bell. He'd received a compassion scholarship after his family fled gang violence. Sarah canceled her speech, escorting Mr. Ellis to the ceremony. Watching Tyler graduate, she reflected on the ripples, from one missed train to a movement combating poverty's vicious cycle. Harlan Enterprises now led in ethical tech, inspiring rivals. George's legacy? Not billions, but bridges built across divides. Sarah's act proved kindness could dismantle injustice, but only if society confronted its shadows. What do you think? In a world plagued by violence and injustice, does one act of kindness really make a difference, or is it just a band-aid on deeper wounds? Share your stance in the comments below. Do you believe systemic change starts with individuals, or is it all about dismantling power structures? Let's hear your views and keep the conversation going.